Hi again, everyone. Gary Digit Williams here on Boxing Along the Beltway with what is going to be maybe the longest news and notes podcast you have heard from me since we've had the Spreaker.com system. We have a lot of news this week, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't gotten in here early in the week, because we have so much going on right now. I know I say that every week, and we have a lot going on. I always say it, but this week was over the top. It was incredible how much news has come down the pike, and it really is still coming down the pike, even as I talk to you right now. It is amazing. So we're going to go through it. We've got couple tributes to hand out as well, but we have a lot of news both on the pro and the amateur front. Now, the big news last week in our News and Notes podcast was the fact that Dominic Wade was in negotiations at that time to take on Triple G Gennady Golovkin on April 23rd. And of course, we went over the details last week on how that bout even got to be a thought more so than getting it done. Well, we have just received word within the last few days that the bout between Gennady Golovkin and Dominic Wade is indeed a go. It will be on Saturday, April 23rd. It'll be held at the Fabulous Forum in Inglewood, California. And it'll be televised, of course, by HBO. So, as I said last week, and I stand by this is a no-lose situation for Dominic Wade. 18-0, 12 KOs. You know, he is the underdog. By every stretch you can possibly imagine, he is the underdog. But there's always that chance. There's always that chance that Gennady Golovkin somehow becomes Lennox Lewis and doesn't look at Dominic Wade like Lennox Lewis didn't look at Hasim Rahman the first time, and Wade pulls off the monumental upset. He's got the talent to do it. I mean, let's not deny that. He's got the talent, but the odds are against him. There's no question about that. The odds against him. I mean, Gennady Golovkin's undefeated. He's 34-0, 31 knockouts, and Golovkin's on a mission to unify the middleweight division. Now, from what we've read, we're not sure how true this is, but we've heard reports that this is not only for Golovkin's IBF middleweight title, in which Wade is ranked number 3 in the world by the IBF. It's also for the WBA Super World middleweight title, the WBC interim middleweight title, and an International Boxing Organization middleweight title. Now, that means it's for all Golovkin's belts. Now, Wade is ranked by the WBA, WBC. My assumption he's rated by the IBO. I've not looked at their rankings. So we'll see. But there'll be at least one title we know is definitely there. That's the IBF middleweight title for Dominic Wade. And that's, once again, Saturday, April 23rd at the Fabulous Forum in Inglewood, California. It'll be televised by HBO. But here's the thing. Before we even get to April 23rd, we have to work with March 5th, Saturday, March 5th. And that day, since we last talked to you, has become a very, very huge day. Now, we've already talked about the card that's going to take place at the DC Armory on that day, the Golden Boy Promotions card on Saturday, March 5th. And we know that Jesse Vargas will take on Saddam Ali, and Saddam Ali in a bout for a world title there. But what we didn't know at the time was whether or not Luis Ortiz, the real King Kong out of Cuba, who now fights out of Miami, Florida, was going to be on the card, because there were so many people who had turned down a possible bout with him. Well, someone did indeed step up to the plate. His name is Alexander Dimitrenko. He is 38-2. And I'm trying to get his knockouts for you, but let's go back a little bit as I'm working technology in this situation. Alexander Dimitrenko, 38-2, 24 KOs. He is known as Sasha. He's out of Russia, now fighting out of Hamburg, Germany. He's coming off a win over Drazen Janjarin back on January the 16th in Bayern, Germany. This, I believe, is actually his first time that he has fought in the United States. And it's going to be a tough one against Luis Ortiz, who is 24-0, 21 knockouts. And he just came off a big win over Bryant Jennings And this will be his third defense of his interim WBA heavyweight title. So that's a big card. And, of course, we know that 3 Beltway boxers will be on the show. Demetrius Ballard, Lamont Roach Jr., Kevin Rivers Jr. And, of course, that card will be televised by HBO. The feature bouts there, Jesse Vargas, Saddam Ali, Ortiz, and Dimitrenko will be televised by HBO. And just as we're trying to digest that, we get word that on the very same night, Saturday, March the 5th, there'll be a card at the Sands Bethlehem Event Center in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and 2 Beltway boxers will be on that card. And one of them will be the 2015 Beltway Boxing Co-Boxer of the Year, Antoine Action Douglas out of Burke, Virginia. Now, what's interesting about this is that it looks like Douglas is trying to follow the same path that Dominic Wade did. Because Douglas's opponent on March 5th will be none other than former world champion Sam Solomon. The very same King Sam Solomon out of Melbourne, Australia, who lost that split decision to Dominic Wade back on June 26 in Shelton, Washington. So it's just eerie how this takes place. Okay, Antoine Douglas is ranked in all 4 of the world rankings, and he looks for the same opportunity that Wade is getting in April. Okay, through this bout against King Sam Solomon. Douglas is 19-0 and won 13 KOs. He has fought on 5 ShoBox cards in a row. However, this card will be a Showtime Championship boxing card, and Douglas will appear on that card. So, as we were at the DC Armory covering the bout going on there, we're going to have to keep our eyes and maybe our phones and in some way try to get information and try to watch a little bit of Antoine Douglas taking on Sam Solomon on Showtime. And if that wasn't enough, we are hearing word, this is from my good friend Dan Rayfield out of ESPN.com, that on that very same card at the Sands Bethlehem Event Center on Saturday, March the 5th, Fernando Guerrero will be on that card. And he's now living in Los Angeles, California, but we claim him from being from Salisbury, Maryland. And he will take on Tony Harrison of Detroit, Michigan in a 10-round bout on that very same card. Now, Guerrero's 28-3, 20 KOs, coming off a 7th-round TKO over Daniel Souza Santos, the same Souza Santos who just lost to David Grayton a couple weeks ago. Actually, last Sunday. And Guerrero knocked him out in the 7th round back on November 13th in Biloxi, Mississippi. Now, Tony Harrison bounced back from suffering his first pro loss, and he had a 10-round unanimous decision win over another Beltway boxer, Cecil McCullough. And that was on October 31st in Houston, Texas. That bout was on the CBS Sports Network. So the explosion is happening, folks. That's 3 national television situations for the Beltway and a couple for the actual boxers in the Beltway. And it just brings back the time, and you look at the middleweight division, where 20 years ago, the Beltway ruled this country in boxing. Because not only do we have 4 world champions at one time, we're going to do a podcast about that later on in the year. We had 4 world champions all at the same time. Of course, Keith Holmes, William Jobby, both middleweights. Mark Too Sharp Johnson, the Hall of Famer, and Sean Bay Mitchell. But we had guys who were contenders who in any other era would have been champions. But especially in this area, they couldn't get past some of the guys who were already champions. Case in point, Andrew Council. Andrew Council never fought Joppy in the pros, but he did fight Keith Holmes twice. Okay. Sean Bay Mitchell had a hold on the junior welterweight division. And Reggie Green, who actually did challenge Mitchell for the title, couldn't get past him. That's how good we were. And we had guys like Daryl Coley. We had guys like Daryl Tyson and late Reuben Bell and Gary Rock Payne. We had so many guys who were contenders, but couldn't get past the guys who were the champions at that time. So that's how good it was, and we're getting close to that era once again. with a lot of the great talent we have. We still have bouts coming up in February. We know Mike, yes, indeed, Reed is fighting in Madison Square Garden on the 27th of February. We just found out that a bout just got canceled on one of our Beltway boxers. That was Brandon Quarles. Brandon Quarles was scheduled to fight on Saturday, February the 6th in Salem, Virginia, but his opponent, Marcus Primera, apparently backed out of the bout, according to Brandon Quarles' Facebook page. So he's not fighting on the 6th of February. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. That's just the pro side. Now we got to move to the amateur side. And the amateur side is, right now, the big deal is the National Silver Gloves. And right now, the Silver Gloves are going on in Independence, Missouri. And we had 8 Beltway amateurs start off real well and win their first round contest. So as you follow on the blog, boxonthebeltway.blogspot.com, you'll be able to follow the exploits of the Silver Glove competitors. And so far, still in the running, we have Cardarius Johnson of Washington, D.C. He is in the boys Pee Wee Open division. That's 8 to 9 years old, 51 to 55 pounds. We've talked about this young man a number of times over this past year. Ragalik Barti of D.C. He won his first bout in the boys intermediate open 12-13 age group, 76 to 80 pound class. So he's still in the running. Benjamin Johnson out of Silver Spring, Maryland. He's in the boys bantam open 10 to 11 age group, 76 to 80 pound division. Stacy Selby out of Washington, D.C. Won his bout in the boys intermediate open, the age 12 to 13, 113, 119 pounds. Siete Schuler of Laurel, Maryland. Boys junior open, 14-15, 148, 156 pounds. Nasheed Smith out of Washington, D.C. Won his bout in the boys junior open, 14-15, 140, 147 pounds. Malik Warren out of Baltimore won his bout in the boys junior open, 114, 15 pound, 120, 125 pounds. And then there's Lorenzo Simpson out of Baltimore. Now, this is a young man who's trying to make history at these Silver Gloves. He is going for his 6th straight National Golden Gloves title in his 6th straight weight division. And only a few boxers have done that. One of them was Dominique Wade, did this. I tell you about, he's done it 5 times. Only one other person's done it 6 times. And right now I cannot remember his name, but Dominique Wade has done it 5 times, and a couple others have done it. But he's going for 6 for 6. And he started his quest yesterday on Thursday with a win in the boys junior open 14-15, 157, 165 pound division. So wish them well. And again, we'll be able to follow their exploits throughout the week on the Box on Beltway blog. Okay, now let's move on. We have some sad news in the Beltway. Young man I had a chance to watch early on in the 90s. This guy was a really strong boxer. At one time, one of the best middleweights in the country. He was ranked number 12 by the USBA, and he was in a even bigger and more important bout for a number of years, health-wise. And we're talking about the guy by the name of Emil Baku. Now, Emil Baku was out of Baltimore by way of Azerbaijan. He and his brother Rufat came to this country. They received political asylum in the U.S., and they started boxing. Rufat only had a couple years in his career, but Emil Baku was a solid middleweight from 1995 to 2003. And he, as I said, ranked number 12 by the USBA. And he's 22-2, 17 KOs. He beat some pretty good people. He beat another Baltimore prospect, Kenny Blackstone. He also beat Daryl Lattimore in Lattimore's final years as a pro boxer. But in 2012, Mr. Baku, he was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of brain cancer. And we wrote about this on the blog in 2014. He was looking for donations. And at that point, he was only given 2 months to live. But he continued to fight. He went down to Brazil and got some aggressive treatment, and that, prolonged things until he could not battle the disease any longer. He passed away on January the 18th. I got a little late word on it, but he passed away on January 18th. His funeral services will be held this coming Saturday at the Druid Ridge Cemetery, located at 7900 Park Heights Avenue. That's located in Baltimore. The services will begin at noon Eastern time. And he was a fun boxer, real hard puncher, good technique. He's the classic Eastern Bloc fighter, and he was getting away from that as he continued his career. And he was real popular around the area. He fought at the Pikesville Army, fought at Michael's 8th Avenue, Glen Burnie, Maryland, a few other places. Fought in D.C. once or twice. Good guy, real nice guy. I had a chance to meet him briefly, talk to him a little bit, and just sad to see the situation happen to him. So our best wishes to Rufat and the rest of the Baku. And their real given name is Israel Filibikov. Israel Filibikov. That's their real name. They took the name of their hometown as their surname when they started boxing. So best wishes to them and best wishes to the family. Our deepest condolences to Emil's family. Finally, as you know, this is Black History Month. You probably know African American History Month. And last year I did a tribute to Mark Too Sharp Johnson. And, pretty well received. I appreciate that. And it was wonderful reliving that career. And it was a remarkable situation. And again, the way that Mark Johnson has helped me, along with his father, have helped me over the years, is something very special that I always cherish. However, we're going to talk about a guy that he's one of the 4 people that I know that if it was not for them, I probably wouldn't be doing this right now. When you talk about guys like Gilbert Ware, we talked about a little bit when we talked about the passing of Alfred Grant. Gilbert Ware was the deputy commissioner for the DC Boxing Wrestling Commission when I first started doing this. Talk about guys like Nat Williams, no relation, at least not by blood, but he's been like a father to me in this business. Great promoter and president of the Boxing Information Center we're trying to resurrect in the next few months. He was one of the first promoters I worked with. When you talk about guys like Cleveland Burgess, who was one of the first matchmakers that I worked with and was really so instrumental through the support of what I was doing, first with Friday Night at the Fieldhouse and then with Boxing Spotlight. He was a major person in my life. And then there's Henry Discombobulating Jones. Now, this guy in this business is like a brother to me. We started in and around the same time. Well, let me say this. He was there a little before I was. And he helped bring me in to the business and helped me meet different people. Now, at that time, he was serving an apprenticeship as a ring announcer. And for those who don't know Henry Discombobulating Jones, let me say that. Henry Discombobulating Jones is the first continually working and continually prominent African-American ring announcer in the history of the sport. And he really, as soon as he got into the business, he reached back to help people get into it. And one of those people was me. And at that time, he was still serving an apprenticeship under a guy by the name of Tom Mills, who was African-American, but ring announcing wasn't his main thing. He was a well-known newscaster and radio person here in Washington, D.C., and it was Gilbert Ware who suggested Discombobulating Jones, who wanted to do everything else in the business. He wanted to commentate. He had other aspirations in entertainment. Mr. Ware said, we don't have many black ring announcers. Why don't you try to be one? And that's how it happened. And as soon as he got going, Jones let me in. I mean, not as a ring announcer, but getting involved in the media and meeting the right people to establish what I wanted to do, which was do play-by-play and do reporting about boxing in the area. And the struggles that Henry has faced over the years just to see it happen firsthand. And I'll tell you a couple stories behind that. Some of it to this day boggles my mind. We had, back in the 90s, we had people like USA, Tuesday Night Fights come in. ESPN would come in and do shows and televise some of our shows. And what would normally happen would be the networks would bring in their favorite announcers. So USA for many years used a great announcer by the name of Ed Darian. They something later would use Mark Bureau for some of the Southern bouts. ESPN, of course, for many years used Michael Buffer. So it was so hard for Henry to break in on a national scale to sometimes even do the undercards of some of these TV bouts. And I never forget, one time we did a show in D.C., and I'm going to start naming names behind this too, by the way. So if they're upset about it here, they're upset about it, so be it. I know it's true. Guy by the name of Brad Jacobs, who was the producer for bouts on the telecast on Tuesday Night Fights on USA, once told Henry that they couldn't use him on TV because he didn't show up well on TV. Now, this is a guy who was always dressed to the nines when he announced. And sure enough, the boxers we had in the ring, they looked like Henry. And for them, they showed up well. How come he could not show up well? Henry has been told that he was too loquacious. Now, if you know anything about the history of ring announcers in this business, I've been listening to a broadcast of a bout featuring Joe Louis taking on Jack Sharkey. This goes back to 1936. It was the bout around 1936. It was the bout right after Louis lost to Max Schmeling. His first bout that Louis had after he lost to Max Schmeling. The ring announcer was a guy named Harry Belo. And Belo was introducing Louis and Sharkey, and he was saying things like, "Who hopes by this victory tonight to regain his lost laurels? Jack Sharkey." And then he introduced Joe Louis. "Who hopes by his successful attempt tonight to be named in the world for heavyweight honors, Joe Louis." I mean, he went on, and to the point where the one of the commentators for the event, the legendary sportscaster Ted Husing, would say Harry Belo's never been short on his introductions. I mean, something along those lines. He was remarking how loquacious Harry Belo was. Now, Henry has never done something that long. He's known for drawn-out openings that sound great. But all of a sudden, he's too loquacious. Ridiculous. And then he's been stabbed in the back by some people who look more like him. In one of the biggest cards we ever had in this area was, of course, the last bout for Mike Tyson against Kevin McBride at the now Verizon Center back in 2005. And Henry was supposed to work that undercard. Jimmy Lennon Jr. was going to be the main event, but Henry's supposed to work that undercard. Somehow, and I'll mention his name, and I know him, and he knows me, and I know him well, and I love the guy, in all honesty, but Rock Newman basically stabbed Henry in the back in that situation, and I saw it happen. "You'll never work for me," and all that stuff. It was ridiculous. But those are some of the things that Henry has had to deal with. I never had to deal with anything along those lines. I think it happened really only one time, and I'm not going to mention his name because we are still good friends to this day, and I understand why it happened. So I don't call racism in that situation, but Boxing Spotlight was doing one promoter's shows for a number of years And then when they decided to do their own thing, they moved us out. And that's their prerogative. And they had announcers that looked more like the promoters. And I get that. I don't mind that. But it is, what he's had to deal with and how he has persevered throughout is something that I've always admired and loved about Discombobulating Jones. Now, Jones this month is going to be honored for a couple of achievements. First of all, he's going to be honored for his 25th anniversary as a ring announcer. And that event is going to take place on Saturday, February the 13th. It'll be held at a place called Tacoma Station Tavern. That's a well-known location here in the Washington, D.C. area, as in Washington, D.C., located 6914 4th Street in Northwest Washington, D.C. Now, this will go from 4 to 8 p.m. It has to be out by 8 because there's an event coming on at that time. I'm going to try to be there. Henry, if you're listening, I haven't been able to talk to you about this, but I have a basketball game early in the day, doubleheader that day, but I'm going to try to get down to D.C. from Baltimore as best I can to get to this event at the end. Because we have games at 2 and 4, so it's going to be tight. I'm definitely trying to get there. And the host is a very good friend of mine as well, and that's the coach, Butch McAdams. He's from WL Radio here in Washington, D.C., and someone I've worked with and known for more than 25 years also. Now, admission is free. They're accepting love offerings, but if you can get over there, especially those in the D.C. area, if you can get over to this event, please do. And honor this man because he has done a lot for DC boxing. There are things that he's done for DC boxing that a lot of people don't know about, and I'm not going to put it out there because I don't think he wants people to know about it. But suffice it to say, he has done it and been a big ambassador for the Beltway boxing scene. On Friday, February the 19th, Jones will be traveling to Atlantic City, New Jersey, and will be honored as part of a Black History Month fight night that will be held at Boardwalk Hall. And he's going to be honored with some very good company. Larry Hazard Sr., the chairman of the New Jersey State Boxing Commission, who's been a longtime friend of this area as well. I've met him a number of occasions, formerly an outstanding referee. And the former New York State boxing chair, Melvina Latham, will be there as well. Now, by the way, this is the card that I was trying to remember where it was last week for Jerry Odom. This is where Jerry Odom will take on Ronald Ellis on Showtime on Friday, February the 19th. And Jones will be honored on that card as part of the Black History Month Fight Night at Boardwalk Hall. And just a great honor for him and well-deserved honor because not only are D.C. and the Beltway taking notice of what he's accomplished, but the country is as well. And it's just so wonderful to see that. And he gets used more and more by promoters outside this area. And it's just great to see. And he's one of my best friends. He was one of my groomsmen at my wedding 22 years ago. And he's just one of the nicest people and one of the most dedicated people that I've ever had the pleasure of being around. And I just wish him nothing but the best, continued success for Henry Discombobulating Jones. And don't forget, he'll be honored first on Saturday, February the 13th, Tacoma Station Tavern from 4 to 8 p.m., 6914 4th Street in Northwest D.C. And, of course, at those in Atlantic City, New Jersey, the Black History Month Fight Night, Friday, February 19th, he'll be honored at that card as well. So, just a fantastic person, and I wish him nothing but the best. Well, it was a lot shorter than I thought it would be, in all honesty, as far as this podcast is concerned. We kind of ran through it a little bit, but suffice it to say, it's been a lot of movement in this business called Beltway Boxing, and we just keep going and just try to ride the wave as best we can. That'll do it for our podcast this week. Thanks for joining us. As always, keep supporting the best boxing in the world, the boxing along the Beltway. I'm Gary Digital Williams. Take care.